But if it goes through that threshold of due diligence and you move on to the next stage and you purchase, that's not the end. You are now going through the most important stage, I always say, the most important step of your acquisition or your purchase or your business when you've acquired new property is the stabilization phase. That is the time where you actually, after you've closed, where you are now implementing the strategy that will allow the property to be what you have imagined it to be. Too many investors move on from acquisition to acquisition and do not value the stabilization phase.
Investing in real estate can be a full-time gig. As an investor, it's important to take stock of your finances and invest in yourself. In this episode, we sit down with Aqui Daps to talk financial literacy, overlooked aspects of managing your portfolio, land development, and much more. Enjoy. You're listening to the Black Wealth Effect podcast, where we're all about inspiring the next generation of Black Canadian real estate investors to succeed financially. If you're tuned in, that means you're hungry to take action and build wealth outside of your 9-to-5. We'll be sitting down with Black real estate investors, entrepreneurs, and allies to discuss a diverse set of topics to help you along your investing journey. Let's get started. Welcome to another episode of the Black Wealth Effect podcast. I'm your host, Mario Griffiths. Ron is a bit under the weather today, so he won't be joining us, but he'll definitely be on for the next episode. That being said, the show must go on. I am so thrilled to introduce our guest today, Aqui Daps. Aqui, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me. Ron, I was looking forward to meeting you, but hey, I guess we'll have to do this some other time again. But Mario, it's good to see you again.
Nice to see you as well. And I actually want to start off by saying thank you so much. You were actually one of our first supporters when the podcast was just an idea on a page. And so thank you so much.
Absolutely. You know, it's needed. The public needs a voice of information, of knowledge, and it's needed. So I'm sure you guys will have tremendous success, and I see that it's already tremendously successful. So keep going.
Thank you. We appreciate the continued support. So we have a ton we want to cover today. I'm excited to learn about your investing journey and pick your brain on a few different topics. We normally like to start the show just by getting to know our guest a little bit on the personal side. For you, what's a fun fact that you could share with our listeners?
It's a good one. Okay, well, for you to even, firstly, before I even get there, for you to know who's Aqui Daps, I think I'm mostly known as Financially Savvy Girl on social media. So this is your girl, Financially Savvy Girl. What you don't know, or you might not know about me, is I am a twin. I guess that's a good fact. I'm a twin. So, you know, us twins out there, we've lived our entire life selfless. So we don't have a problem even sharing a cake on our birthday or sharing the spotlight. So, so I just, as a result of all of that, I just really believe in abundance, and there's enough. The pie is big enough for all of us, even in this space.
Right. And I love that perspective. And we're definitely going to delve into that philosophy a bit more later in the show. But we're approaching Financial Literacy Month in Canada at the time of recording this episode. And both Ron and I have shared that growing up, the topic of financial literacy was never usually a topic of conversation around the dinner table. And I feel like it's a topic that just isn't talked about enough within the Black community. Can you share your philosophy on financial literacy and how you instill good habits within your household?
Right. I mean, I think you're right. You know, it's a conversation that has been tabooed for a lot of, I mean, in the Black community, but also a lot of just immigrant families. I think for two parts. For one, I think there's this taboo culture about talking about money. You know, you don't talk about money, you don't talk about your finances, you don't talk about any of that. And unfortunately, it has left us in a place of disconnect with how to grow financially, how to build generational wealth, and what are some tactics to diversify your investment, diversify your sources of income. Because we were not, or because for generation or at the dinner table, these conversations were not happening, then people were continuously making the same mistakes when they could have just learned from others' mistakes and grow from there. Financial literacy, I say, is really important, not only because financial literacy provides a foundation for informed financial decision making, but because financial responsibility are increasing as you get older, it increases. And if you did not grow up talking about it, as those responsibility increase, you are left, as I call, financially rubbed, in the sense that you don't have the knowledge and the intelligence to actually make informed decisions that allows your money to grow. For me, I was definitely part of that. I graduated from law school very young, and people were like, yeah, this is amazing. And everything was great and dandy. Yay. But, I was completely financially illiterate and allowed some really bad decision being made because I was not an informed participant, right? Where I can tell the bank or anybody what to do with my money. So financial literacy allows you not just a seat at the table, but makes you an active participant where you're now telling others what you want your money to do for you. And there's nothing more powerful than being in that position.
That's powerful. That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. And can you touch a little bit on how you kind of impart a few habits just within your household?
Yeah. First, I guess I have to tell you a little bit about how even Financially Savvy Girl started. It's as a result of all those mistakes, financial mistakes that I had made, just graduating from law school with crazy debt and trusting everybody but myself to figure out how to handle and pay that off, living paycheck to paycheck for a while after that. At some point, enough was enough. And I had to look at myself in the mirror and say, I don't have a good relationship with money. It doesn't make sense. So completely deconstructing that, shifting that mindset, learning everything that I could possibly learn out there about money, about shifting your relationship with money, has allowed me today, to be honest with you, that was the birth of my platform, my coaching, Financially Savvy Girl, because now fast forward, had a daughter, and I'm like, I'm just going to leave some notes, some journal notes to her about money management tips. That's really what Financially Savvy Girl is. Financially Savvy Girl was her, and I was writing to her. But then I started mentoring some of the women, the younger women who were around me. They're like, oh, what are you doing? This information should be shared out there. So, and that's how I ended up opening the platform and the coaching and all of that. So in our household, I'm married. My husband and I, we have young children, but there's certain things that we already do to make them very aware. We have a 5-year-old, she has piggy banks. She has a smaller piggy bank, and that smaller piggy bank is the smallest one is spending. And then she has a mid-sized piggy bank, and that mid-sized piggy bank is saving. And then she has a bigger size piggy bank. And that bigger size piggy bank is investing. So from any funds that she receives, we teach her from an early stage, okay, so it's important to invest, it's important to save, and it's important to, when you spend, the spending piggy bank has two entry points. There's one that is giving and there's one that is spending. So from the age of 3, when she was 3, we started implementing that where she's actually a participant in there. And she knows that everything that I make, everything that I receive, whether it's from the grandparents or if I do any chores, now we're introducing chores and all of that. So she knows that the money has to be, that one bill that she receives has to be distributed into these different categories. And she understands that the bigger piggy bank is investment and whatnot. And then when the piggy bank gets a bit more full, she has bank accounts. We literally physically go with her. She has her own bank account. She goes with daddy to the bank. And the first time we took her there, she hated it. She's like, oh my God, I don't want to get rid of the money in my piggy bank. And, that is it's funny because she's 5, but that's usually how we act, even as adults. We love to hoard our money in savings account. And when it leaves that savings or checking account, we feel like, oh my God, what are we doing? You feel empty. But you have to release that money from your saving, from your checking, and actually put it into investment so you can grow it. So just seeing, even as a child, for her to go through that struggle, for me, it made me realize why, as adults, we go through that struggle if we didn't have these lessons early on in life. So I know she's not going to have the struggle because she is already been trained on understanding the importance of investing, understanding the importance of not keeping the money in the piggy bank, in the savings account, but actually putting it to work so that it can make more money for her. Also, something that we do for their birthday, one thing that we do, there's a monetary aspect for their birthday. So let's say I remember one year, I believe it was last year when she was 4, she wanted I think she wanted a bouncy castle, like a big bouncy castle. So I was looking at the prices and I'm like, these things are crazy expensive. Like they were like 600, 700. And I'm like, that's insane. So instead, we rented a bouncy castle for the day because honestly, you only need it for the day. But the value of the bouncy castle, we gifted to her as a gift in an investment account. So that money, then after the birthday, I set her down and we went through. I'm like, okay, well, now you get to buy like a piece of a company, So explain to her, she loved Disney. So we're talking about it. And she started buying stocks and she understands the importance of that. So she's 4 or 5 years old and understand every birthday part of the gift is to buy stocks, is to put your money in investment. And whenever we go, we're big on real estate. Whenever we go for the properties that we have locally, we take her. And I love the experience because she asks questions. Okay, mommy, is this still our house? I'm like, yes, this is still our house, but we own this house, but it's someone else's house. They're making it their home, so we're providing housing for people. And she's like, okay, so why are we here? I'm like, well, there's a problem. So we're going to come see what exactly is the problem because it's still a house and we have to make sure things are good and people are happy in the home. So her having that understanding from an early age, for me, is the big shift in the dynamic and the relationship and the mindset that she needs to have to grow, with the knowledge and the importance of investing and creating wealth.
I love that. You mentioned having that mindset around building that knowledge related to financial literacy and being financially savvy. And then most importantly, to your point, starting early and building those habits, that will take you a long way for sure.
It's like allowing our children to stand on our shoulder where, we didn't necessarily come from background where we had these conversations at the dinner table, but it's really about now having those conversations. And something that I also realized even about our parents and their parents, first, a lot of us, our parents may be first generation immigrants. And the way of doing things here, the financial way of doing things in Canada is completely different, right? From back home where it's a lot more communal to some extent. And here there's a bit more of a capitalism mindset. So it's different. And they came to provide a better life for us. And there's a lot of things that maybe they were not aware of or how to properly invest and all that. But they've done what they can with what they had. But now we're in this informational era where really there is no excuse for us not to create what needs to be created, to have the knowledge and the understanding, do the work so that our children can truly stand on our shoulder and create that generational wealth and really bridge that wealth gap.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's definitely what we set out to do with the show and inspiring people to do that. I love it.
I love it.
And so you touched on your relationship with money and kind of the thought process around that. If we pivot from kind of the personal side of that to the business side, from a real estate investing perspective, like what are some like good money tips that you would share either with that new investor potentially doing their first BRRRR or their first reno,
Right.
or even just like managing day-to-day operations for their rentals?
You know, what I've come to realize is whether, first of all, real estate is a tool and an investment vehicle, right? And I think it's important for people to realize that, because when you realize that, then you operate it in a very intentional, but in a very smart, savvy way. Some people are over leveraging in real estate to the extent where they are literally, not making money. And I do believe there is a way to really create significant amount of wealth with real estate and be a good steward with your money and properly manage your day-to-day finance. It has to come in together. And that's really the message that I try to convey. So for that to occur in your real estate business, because it's a business and it's a tool for you to grow significantly your money for even generations to come through. For that to take place, you need to understand the day-to-day money management. And so if I had to give some tips, I would say, as you are investing in real estate, first, find a strategy that works for you, right? And get really good at it. So whether it's BRRRR strategy, I'm a huge fan of the BRRRR strategy. I know I love multifamily. I love land. So developing land, whether you are converting a small bungalow into that is in a great zoning area and you're converting it into a beautiful multi-unit, or you're taking a commercial building and you are converting it into a residential, or you are simply taking a multi-unit that is already in existence and you're forcing the appreciation by utilizing the BRRRR method and renovating each unit when you can, depending on what's the condition of the lease per unit, and then forcing that appreciation. And then once you do that, then you refinance and then you invest in another property. So whatever strategy works for you, get really good at it. But a mistake that I often see with investors is they don't fully have a real strategy in mind. What exactly, not every project will be the same, right? So what's my goal for this? And then allowing yourself the time to fully and properly stabilize. So investors are good. They'll analyze the deals. They'll be like, the numbers make sense. They'll go through the process of the acquisition or due diligence, and then don't cheap out in the due diligence stage. Do those inspection, really give yourself the time to assess, does it make sense post inspection? Should I carry on? Should I waive those conditions? Look at everything. And then if you do decide after the due diligence stage to move forward with the purchase and you waive the condition, that's good. That's fine. And if you decide not to, that's fine as well. Sometimes the best deals are the ones that you don't end up closing on, right? Because if it's a headache from the get-go, it's probably going to be a headache later and will cost you instead of allowing you to make money. So, but if it goes through that threshold of due diligence and you move on to the next stage and you purchase, that's not the end. You are now going through the most important stage. I always say the most important step of your acquisition or your purchase or your business when you've acquired new property is the stabilization phase. That is the time where you actually, after you've closed, where you are now implementing the strategy that will allow the property to be what you have imagined it to be. Too many investors move on from acquisition to acquisition and do not value the stabilization phase, right? So reviewing everything, making sure that you have the proper, strategy in place, making sure that you have your legal in place, your accounting in place, your bookkeeping, whatever it may be, but stabilize that investment. If you're doing a BRRRR, do it properly. Make sure that you have your budget for that business, for that investment. Make sure that you have your expense sheet. Like, make sure that you are stabilizing and are clear on, because it's through the stabilization phase that you will actually grow your investment. So I would say that. And something else that I would say, as you are growing your real estate investment portfolio, rather, do not neglect your personal finance. Don't just acquire and you're there, you have all these crazy debt and you don't know how to pay anything, and you're just like swimming in debt and bad credit and faking the funk for the Jonas. Like it doesn't really make sense. So make sure that you're putting your household in order. Make sure that you are managing your personal finance well as you are building your portfolio and building generational wealth. So have a good balance.
That's great advice. And I agree with you. I love that you talked about that stabilization process, because I feel like it's not talked about as much. To your point, a lot of people focus on the acquisition, the closing, but how much I'm going to make on this trip, or the highlights, right? It's so extremely important. And as you mentioned, balancing that with the personal finances, making sure everything is in order on the personal side. Love it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so we touched on it a little bit earlier. And as you know, we're extremely passionate about representation on this show, and ensuring that we stand loud and proud and inspiring others. I know for you, you're passionate about that as well. And you're also the co-founder for the Women's Investor Network Canada.
That's correct.
Can you talk just a little bit about the inspiration behind that, and maybe just share a little bit about what you do?
Absolutely. I think representation matters. Racial representation, gender-based representation. I am a firm believer in having people who look like you, seeing through you that they can achieve, right? And it has a lot of impact. I've entered a lot of rooms where, by God's grace, people have been inspired just because they see themselves through me. I'm not someone who always had it together financially. I'm someone who learned and grew from it. I'm also a Black woman, and oftentimes, extremely, as a minority, as a woman, as a Black woman, you're all oftentimes underestimated, and I've just frankly used this as a huge power tool in my box, because whether it's from a legal standpoint, from a real estate, from a wealth building standpoint, from a coaching standpoint, you kind of become the silent assassin. People don't kind of see you coming, and you become the silent assassin. So representation is really important, and you have to be confident in what you bring to the table and create those table. And, if they don't exist, the Women Investors Network in Canada, for us, co-founder, as you mentioned, there's Esther, Danielle, and myself, who founded the Women Investors Network in Canada, and we are fully incorporated now. So we're super happy about that. we just realized that the conversations were different. The conversations are different when women are alone in a room and there's talking investments. It's just a different type of conversation. And, we're able to lead with our experiences without feeling like you need to sort of put on a front or anything, like, or feeling like, questions that you may be asking, maybe it's not the proper setting to ask the questions. No, you're just able to show up as yourself. And we find that by creating those rooms, a lot of women who, whether they were first-time investors or seasoned investors, they find something very refreshing about being in that room. So we didn't see that those rooms really exist much in Canada. So we decided to create it. And, if you've seen us, we're three women from completely different backgrounds. And that is a statement of our importance of representation. We wanted to create a room in Canada, first of all. We wanted it to represent Canadian and Canadian from different backgrounds, right? For women from different backgrounds, whether they're immigrants or they're Canadian by citizenship or they're here in Canada because they live here. But we just wanted to create a room where everybody from different walks of life could feel confident and build that confidence to really unleash the investor in her. Because, Mario, it's been statistically proven that women are actually better investor. It's not me. Don't shoot the messenger. Shoot the statistic, right? But we lack the confidence to know that and to step forward and be a bit more risky. So with the Women Investors Network, we've created rooms where women are building that confidence and seeing other women excelling in this area. And then as a result of that, they are feeling that, they can completely do this and they can excel. And it's also a room where women are not just sharing their ideas, but they're also collaborating and doing, joint ventures together and helping one another, like in terms of their different acquisitions. And okay, well, I'm an expert in short-term rental. Well, I'm an expert in this. Well, let's collaborate. Well, let me pick your brains on that. And we love it. And, as it started in Ottawa, and we've been successful, thank God, to implement different chapters. And we are literally coast to coast in less than a year of starting the Women Investors Network. We have chapters in Vancouver and Halifax and Guelph and GTA, and soon to be announced chapter in Montreal. And I'm sure I'm forgetting one area that I'm going to get in trouble for. So we have chapters a little bit everywhere. And we are so grateful and thankful. And the point is to reach women all over Canada and to create chapters everywhere so women feel like they're not limited by distance or whatnot, to find a space where they can come and be empowered and become the badass investors that I know that they are.
Love it. That's great. It's definitely powerful work, and it sounds like you're definitely making an impact. So kudos to you for that.
We're very grateful for the community, and really, they're them welcoming the idea with such open arms.
That's awesome. Yeah. And so I know amongst the many hats that you wear, coach is one. And I know, as passionate as you are about financial literacy and like wealth generation, you're equally as passionate about fitness and personal health. Absolutely. And so I know your coaching program, like as part of it, you incorporate the two, which is quite unique. Like I haven't, definitely a unique program. Can you talk a little bit about that passion and like how you incorporate the two?
Absolutely. Well, the group coaching program is called Fit and Wealthy, and definitely incorporating your health as being a major component of your wealth journey. And also in there, there's obviously the wealth aspect, which is money management and real estate. So it's a group program, and you have women who are joining, and we do our workouts. Everybody's kind of doing their own workout, but we're all part of this platform, and we work out and we motivate and encourage each other in the morning. I'm a firm believer in the importance of not losing yourself. Life can get crazy and things will happen, circumstances will happen, especially, you start having children, you're a mom, we just have tendency to like put ourselves last all the time. And oftentimes when you put yourself last all the time, you only give, from that emptiness of yourself. So it's about really reclaiming yourself and being the best version of yourself, not just for you, but for you. And also it trickles down to your loved ones, including your family, your children, your husband, everybody is happier when mommy feels good about herself. So it's about empowering women to reclaim themselves, men as well to reclaim their health. Because what's the point, Mario, if we're just out there building real estate, building wealth, buying, acquiring all these properties? You don't just build for generations to come. You also want to be enjoying what you're building. And how can you do that if you're not taking care of your health, right? How are we there renovating and making homes look so beautiful? But the first home, which is our body, is our first temple that was provided to us. We don't even take the time to give it what it needs. And moving and exercising is what it needs, right? As much as it also needs fueling. So it's about really finding the joy in the journey of moving your body and understanding that it trickles and affects in a positive way every other aspect, including your business. One question that people often ask me is like, how do you do everything that you do? I'm like, one, I strongly show up for myself in the morning. It's non-negotiable. I have specific time for just me, and everything else comes after. And also I prioritize my energy, and I don't feel that I need to be everywhere and do everything. So it's about knowing your priorities. It's about, setting yourself up for success every day, and moving your body is definitely a major part of that.
That is awesome. I love it. And as you touched on, like, especially in real estate investing, like, I find like you could definitely get caught in kind of this vacuum of next deal, what's happening here, what's happening there, and not really, to your point, taking stock in
Right.
in yourself and in investing in your health. So I love it. That's great.
And we don't talk enough about the burnout of a real estate investor, the sort of the mental anguish of, okay, this deal didn't work, multiple deals not working. Like, how do you deal with all of that? Or the go-ness that we find ourselves in, but not taking time to like, all right, now it's time to just relax, like all of you have to balance. Your pillars in life have to be balanced for you to really find wholeness and really happiness. Because if you're just busy building, you're going to find yourself miserable and depressed, and you don't even understand why, because you have all this money, but your pillars are not balanced. Those things that actually matters, they're not balanced.
Exactly. 100%. You mentioned like land development being one of your favorite strategies.
Yes.
Can you, for those, and I feel like it's a strategy that's not talked about enough, like in comparison to the BRRRR or the buy and hold. It's not as considered as sexy at times. Can you share a little bit about like what that strategy entails, and then maybe just share like a little bit about your first deal, and maybe like including like high level numbers for our listeners as well.
Right. Land development is amazing. I do believe, like in anything in real estate, it's good to do things properly, get some coaching, and frankly, I don't know anyone locally or nearby who's so great in land development as much as Karina Guzman. So, she's a really good friend of mine, and I'm always picking her brains for things. So shout out to you, Karina, because land development can truly change. So my husband and I had been sort of, we've always loved land, and it's like not quite knowing what we're going to do with it, but it's just having land, knowing that there's land. And I think when you fully immerse yourself in land development and you understand how to look at zoning and understand where the city or various places where you are, where's the city going as far as the plans, right, for the city and housing plans, you can really position yourself as a real estate investor to make a lot of money, right? Because there's so much that you can do in land development. You can purchase a piece of land with that is properly zoned with let's say, a house in there. And the plan is for you to rezone. But while you're going through the process of rezoning, which can be costly, you can now utilize the property that's already in there for you to generate some income. It could be short-term rental. It could be, so it's about getting a proper deal that makes sense. Like I said, not every deal will be the same. Something that we're currently doing, and I think could be beneficial for hearers to know about, is really a cottage, a waterfront cottage that has a beautiful zoning that is on a piece of land with multiple acres. And so the purpose of this property is going to be short-term rental. Oh, and it's a duplex waterfront. I know, it's pretty sick, Mario.
That's awesome.
So, duplex, meaning on the upper level, there's a kitchen, there's bedrooms, there's a bathroom, the lower level, kitchen, bedroom, bathroom, and there's patio on both sides, waterfront, acres on it. So it's really about, on one side of the land that doesn't have a cottage on, really building mini cottages on it as well. And then there's a lot more actually, piece of land, again, that is facing the water side. And it's really providing a venue, like a wedding venue, outdoor type of wedding venue. So when you look at this one piece of property, Mario, you are looking at a short-term rental. You're looking at a wedding venue. You're also looking at mini cottages. So whenever there's weddings and whatnot, you can actually rent out the mini cottages for guests as well. And you can also rent it out to the wedding party. Whenever it's not a wedding or just an event, you can utilize one side for just the event, and you can rent out Airbnb the other side and vice versa. So that one piece of property, from a land developer perspective, the possibilities are endless. It gives me the land that I need, the zoning that I need, and it's also multi-unit while also being a short-term rental that is really not far from Ottawa. It's like an hour and a half away. So yeah, so that's a beauty for me. I look at things like that can provide me multiple sources of income. Land development, you can literally flip a paper, as we call it. And that is you just getting the proper zoning, the proper documentation. And instead of going through the stage or the phase rather of building, you actually flip that paper to a developer. And you can easily make, if it's a good investment that you've properly analyzed, you can make 300, 400K by really, and that's profit margin by having done not so much, but just the legwork that a developer would need, right? Or you can decide to go on and actually do the development of the project itself, which takes longer time and you need more money up front. But then the benefits of that is the end result, you are making significantly more money. Right. So it's a great strategy in real estate, but you want to make sure that you get proper training.
That's so powerful. Definitely would love to see that property that you're referring to. So you're going to have to show me pictures afterwards.
Come on, down anytime. Come to the cottage.
I'll take you up on that. So that's great advice. And actually, on that note, for an investor looking to implement the strategy in today's market, with what seems like never-ending interest rate hikes, what advice would you give them?
I would say know how to analyze, understand the city plan, purchase the property if you can, and sit on it, right? And be prepared to implement when the timing is right. I know I can't speak for other areas, but for sure, like here in Ottawa, based on the new site plans that are coming out, You know that purchasing in certain area where like 15 minutes neighborhood, where the city is looking to convert a lot of properties that will really be beneficial for real estate investors. Sit on those. And a lot of them, people are not looking at them. They're like bungalows, but they're going to be converted into like, high semi detached with like basement suites and like that little bungalow is turning into a sixplex, really. But it's about knowledge. Knowledge is power. So get the proper training and sit on it and then wait for the new site plans, but understand what you're doing. So get the knowledge and get the information and start implementing.
Love it. Yeah, knowledge is definitely power. I agree with that 100%. So thank you so much. This has been extremely insightful conversation. I appreciate you sharing the many nuggets, both from a financial literacy perspective, as well as on the real estate side.
Right.
Before I let you go, if you could just share with our listeners, like what's next for Aqui on the, like in terms of real estate, like how could they get in touch with you? Like what's the best way?
Absolutely. In this market, I've really pivoted to a lot of short-term rentals, including luxury properties outside of Canada. So right now we are building a luxury, fully furnished property in Mexico, Tulum. We are also investing in a property in Punta Cana, and all of them have like their own private pools and whatnot. And those areas are key from a international investor perspective as far as tourism and how they are performing. And so looking at that and also looking at some real estate in Africa, because I do believe Africa is the present and people are not looking at it, they're missing out. So doing that internationally and just stabilizing some of the investments that we did this year. We closed on a 20 unit here in Ottawa. So stabilizing that this year and implementing some of the strategies that we want to put for the cottage so that it can be all ready for next year. So what can you expect? You can expect me to continue putting my head down and stabilizing the investments and making sure that they are generating passive and multiple sources of income. That's my gem. And you can further expect me to convert a lot of my coaching into an e-course. First time I'm announcing it. And the e-course will be ready as early as next year. And it's really to help people from the management side to know how to invest in themselves, build an emergency fund, diversify their sources of income and investment, and also to really grow their money through real estate and understanding estate planning. So it's going to be different facets. It's really to provide people with all of the understanding to make money, keep money, and be savvy with their investments.
Love it. And then for our listeners, what's the best way that they can reach you?
The best way, I'm really active on Instagram. So financially_savvy girl is where you can reach me. If you have any questions, I love to speak and interact with people. So just, fire me a message and we'll get in touch and we'll get on a chat.
Fantastic. Aqui, thanks so much again for the time. Really appreciate it. For our listeners, thanks again for tuning in to another episode of the Black Wealth Effect podcast, and we'll catch you later.
Thank you so much, Mario, and keep soaring, guys.
What was the one thing you heard today that inspires you to take action? Now plan to take that action in the next 24 hours. If you're looking for more support, ideas, or just want to connect with others like you taking action, join us in the Black Wealth Effect Facebook group. The link is in the show notes. Thank you for listening, and we'll catch you next time on the Black Wealth Effect podcast.